And welcome everybody to the Roundtable University. Classes in session. That is right. We are here for the Thursday night before Memorial Day weekend. And before we forget, please have a safe and happy, enjoyable weekend. Today, we have some folks here in studio that I'm proud to say are my colleagues within the educational system here in Clark County School District. After today's show, however, you may want to change your opinion on that. Of us, I'm only kidding. That's all right. First of all, let's welcome our regular guys all the way down the far end of the table, simply known as the Mouth, Mr. George Miklos.
How do?
How you buddy?
What's up, man? What's happening? Stephanie, what's going on?
To his left is teacher number one. It's like, what's your line? Sign in, please. Teacher number one. Stephanie Swain. She has almost 20 years experience as an educator. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello.
Welcome to my classroom.
Thank you so much.
Can you sign
Happy to be here.
Can you sign my medical? I need to get.
That's right. You need to get out of PD.
Oh
right?
my goodness.
The man in the
Sign it
middle will
off.
not be outdone by two lovely ladies next to him because he's lovely himself. The great Denver Bronco, Mr. Rick Upchurch. How are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello.
Emily.
Hello.
Hey, I need some tutoring. That's why they're here.
That's it.
How come they applauded for Rick and not George?
Somehow
Sitting next to Rick and myself, Miss Emily Poehler, also almost 20 years experience. Hi.
Hi.
All those times we would yell across each other in the hallway. Now you're going to know what it's going to be like to be led by yours truly. And I, of course, from Aaron, the voice Phillips. Thank you for watching a very special edition of the Roundtable.
Oh, don't we introduce you? Wait a minute.
Oh, you do? I'm sorry. Rewind. Go ahead.
What do you do?
No, and to the left of us, the guy that has the voice, our
The voice.
big guy. What's his name?
I don't know.
What's his name?
Mr. Aaron
Phillips.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for
All right.
No, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. There's my only two fans. My wife doesn't even do that for me. Anyway, so here's what we got going on for today's show. First of all, if you're watching us on Facebook, thank you very much. But you can go over to YouTube, do the same exact thing if you prefer YouTube. Or you can watch us on the WWDBTV channel, same thing, Facebook or YouTube. Or if you're on the go, like it is 4 o'clock roughly here in Vegas time, maybe you're out and about, getting ready to leave work, picking up the kids from summer school or getting ready for summer school, or who knows where you are, download the WWDBTV app to your Android, WWDBTV LV to your iPhones. And the best part is if you forget all of that, but you have Roku, download the WWDBTV channel to Roku. Not only will you be able to watch all the shows for the Roundtable, but all the, what word can I use tonight? Plentiful. I think I've used that one. All the shows here on
Just don't use
WWDBTV.
plethora.
Yeah, no more plethora.
God,
We should have a plethora jar.
He wore that word out.
Yes.
Is that like putting marbles in a jar?
I ain't got marbles to put in. You
don't
can't
have
put
it?
in what you don't have.
I was
You know when somebody says lose your marbles, I can't find what I don't have in the first place. So anyway, so here's tonight's agenda, folks. You hear the three of us. We talk about education across the country. We hear about behavior. We hear about guns. We hear about classroom. We hear about all of that stuff. So tonight, we decided to bring in real experts because I'm just a tutor. What do I know?
People on the front line.
The people on the front, more people on the front lines. That's right. They are here to talk about really everything that we've been talking about, but especially the behavioral issues in the classroom, right? We're going to talk about some of that. We're going to talk about how people can be, protected in school. That's an issue now as well. Education. We may even focus it to things within what's going into CCSD in general, like how important a great environment within the school itself should be, not only for staff, but also for the kids. We're going to talk about some of that. Take your calls and comments and maybe sprinkle in a few America Speaks topics if George has done his homework. If not, the ladies will have to keep him for detention.
That's right.
702-992-3207 is our number. Of course, we're watching the chat room. If you're on YouTube watching, John will get those. He'll feed them up on the bottom of the screen, hopefully big enough for me to read for everybody. If not, just read them on your own. That's what we call self-teaching in this district. Anyway.
And George, We don't have a blackboard. We have a green board.
That's
so
right.
you're going to have to write on the green board.
Just don't write in green ink, though.
Right,
Yeah.
give me a black pen. Is that?
Yeah, sure. Then you'll have to have a can of paint
Absolutely.
painted over later.
Oh,
How many times? 100,000?
Right.
That's how
I will not say that bad word again. Like Mark Simpson.
That's right.
That's how we did it.
The fact that she even knows that word.
I know. It's like, wait a
How do you
minute,
put up with that stuff? You got it.
So ineffectual.
So let's start with you, Stephanie, since you know how well Mark Simpson writes on the board. Just give our audience a little bit of your background. I mean, I could read it, but I'd rather have them hear from you.
Well,
Like how long
teaching-
you've been in teaching?
Yes. I
And realize she'd stumble on the first
I was
question.
trying to count, and
I'm trying.
it's around 19. It's up there, as you know. That happens. You kind of like forget. Most of the time in upper elementary, so most of the time in 5th grade, which I loved the curriculum. I loved what we were learning together. Love the kids. So, and I just recently, the last 3 years, taught 2nd grade. And next year, not because of 2nd grade, but I'll be going to middle school. So we're flipping it back. Yeah.
So why the change from elementary to middle school? Was it just for something different after 3 years of 2nd grade?
It is. You just want to keep learning. I know I've always kind of thought about it, but I've also heard that it's really different. So I really want kind of
Challenge.
I want my own, experience and see how it's different. And I think, when you care about your career, it's important to know how it looks in different places and with different
and that
people.
keeps you
So,
learning by seeing how all the different teachers and all the
does.
different levels do.
Yep.
Emily, last year you were teaching the science program.
Yeah.
And what in God's name took you out of that to go into a 2nd grade class yourself?
Right. Well, I was teaching STEM as a special, but it was nice because I could plan for just one group of kids over a week or so, and that was easy. But I miss the connection that you make with kids because in a specialist position, you see kids about 26 times in the entire 180 days.
Because of the
So,
rotation.
right.
Yeah. So you don't make a bond with them
Right.
like you would seeing them every day.
Sure.
And I felt like I wasn't moving the needle. And so I wanted to step back into where I thought that could happen. So back to 2nd grade.
And
Quick
you're
question. I know that Stephanie, you moving up to middle school. Are you concerned with the age difference of the kids? I know grade school is 7, 8, 9, 10. Middle school is teenagers. Are you concerned about how they're going to react to your teaching skills in your classroom? And, them being young teenagers now, it's not going to be the same as a 9 and 10-year-old kid.
Right. No, yes. I don't know if concern, hopefully right now is not the right word, but definitely wondering about it. My daughter has given me some tips of
getting
mostly
tips from the professionals.
Yes.
mostly of things not to do and say.
I guess you have to because today, I mean, you have to worry about offending a kid or doing something they don't like, even though it's your classroom and it's not whether they like it or not. Yeah, you want your students to like you and respect you, but
You do.
sometimes you're going to have to learn to do things that they don't want to do, which helps with their mental and physical growth and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. That was an interview question that I had to answer. And the way I ended it was, well, sometimes you have to learn that there's things that you have to do that you don't want to do. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
So.
Rick, do you have a question in the meantime?
No, not right.
Oh,
I'm
just
listening.
Okay.
I'm a listener.
There'll be, let's see. There's Donna Upchurch is in the chat room. Hi, everyone. It's all good today. I would like to know why summer break is so short. Teachers need the entire summer off and truly deserve it, especially for their Saturday. We get out of school the first week in June and didn't go back until
September.
September.
After Labor Day.
Yes.
We had 3 months off.
Well, we started that way here when we first moved here. CCSD worked that schedule, and then because of the scheduling of testing and everything else, they kept moving the schedule back. And then school started earlier in August, about 3-4 years ago, to accommodate high school testing to be completed before winter break.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's why it seems so early. But think about it.
Yeah.
And to Donna's question, and ladies, obviously you can respond to this better than I can, but you're talking, you have really June, July, and at least half of August. So, I mean, this year we go back, what, the 7th? Is that the first date?
Yep.
So 2
Well,
months in a
Teachers
week.
go back the 3rd.
Oh, so you're a couple of days earlier than the kids do to set up. But essentially,
Yeah.
it's 2 months off.
Don't they have year-round schooling?
Not
too?
anymore.
No.
Yeah,
I
they
think I'm
used
glad
to.
they got rid of
They got rid of the tracks in your house.
Okay, no.
Well, it's the pay. I mean, certainly you have to pay, right, the teachers when they come back during the summer to work with those kids, right? So what about the pay? Is the funding aspect of the schools, man, has gotten so bad, and the teachers are probably saying, well, I need to be taken care of, right?
It's hard because you want to do things for the kids, and you know that you're part of that school community. You
Right.
care about those families, you care about those kids, not only their education, right, but their friendships and how they're doing socially and mentally, and if they have the things that they need. And so to say, I feel like sometimes we get upset with people when they ask for more money for something, right? But you also have to look at what that is worth to you. And, yes, we're there for the kids, right? But people deserve to get paid for what they do.
Value.
And it is incorrect to say that how do they always put it? Like, well, you have 3 months off, right? So
Right,
you
right.
shouldn't,
so why
Or
are
you
you
have
shouldn't
bankers
get the same
hours.
pay as
Right.
somebody who works 12 months a year, right?
Right.
And I get that, right? Because what they don't understand is that during those 9-ish months when you're working, you are doing multiple things, and you are not working 8 to 3. That's obnoxious. I've never seen anybody do that. That would be a really short day. So, yeah.
And again, in today's, even when I was a kid, or Rick or Aaron, parents and teachers are the most important people in a kid's life. And again, I was going to come to that eventually, how today's parents are. How are they today? Because I know I saw a meme, and we've discussed this before, where 50 years ago when I was a kid, it was when we had parent-teacher conference, and I had done bad in school, and Mr. and Mrs. Teacher, don't worry, we'll take care of Georgie at home. Nowadays is, why are you flunking my student? Why are you?
Yeah, you're on the defensive quite often.
And it's
yeah.
terrible, and I don't understand that.
Right. I feel like the responsibility is never on the child anymore. It's more so on
Or
the
the
teacher,
household.
right? Or even
the
that,
household.
right? Education system, I feel like, has taken on some of the responsibilities that should be taken on as a parental. Like, it just
course.
it's a dumping ground for everything now. Education was supposed to be for education. Now it's not. It's for everything.
Well,
Wraparound services,
Where do
all
you
these
think
other
that
things.
changed? When do you think that all? 10 years, 15, when you guys first started teaching, or just along the way?
I mean, when it changed in the past, you mean?
Well, when did all this start
Social
to
media,
change?
that's
Where
my opinion.
you think in the last 15 years or so?
Social media. Parents hitting me. Get the cameras out. Kids
Technology.
threatening parents to call DIFUS, or, to me, all those threats started.
And I also think when COVID hit,
Yeah.
it changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
It changed how you had to teach.
Yeah.
It changed how you had to communicate. Parents were angry because of certain things, and you guys were getting the blame for it because their kids weren't getting the education.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the parents weren't there, man, to make sure that their children were on the cause to make sure they get their education, and then they want to blame it on you. Is that what you guys were getting after COVID or during COVID?
During COVID, we had a lot of absenteeism, I guess. There was, I can't even think of 2 kids out of my class of 19 at the time that I had regularly.
Did you guys do Zooms and that kind
We
of thing?
did, yep.
Wow.
And so I
It's Google Meets. Zoom started,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
started with Zoom, but then all the people that were able to get into these Zoom calls that did not belong. So then they bounced out of that in Google Plus. Google
which
Meets
is okay.
was then a
You
much
had
more
special
better
That's what
platform.
it was,
for us.
yes.
to
Yes,
get in.
Google
yeah,
Meets
I just
eventually.
group it all together. So
Me
yeah,
too, me too.
it's all the same,
It's all-
different words,
yeah.
same thing.
Right.
But
I wish
yeah,
I had stocked
but-
Zoom prior to the pandemic.
So if you
But
have
we
19
learned-
kids, you'd have 19 faces on the screen.
you would, yes, if their camera was on, which
So-
sometimes you wished it wasn't.
Yeah. So what about? We know right here locally in Clark County, right? And we know some of the kids are rural, and a lot of times they weren't able to get on because
Right.
they didn't have the hookup, right?
The bandwidth,
The
right?
ban- yeah.
Yes.
And so how did that affect kids? How did you all get with them and able to tutor them and teach them as well?
right. Well, we work at a Title I, Tier 1 school, so we were here in urban, right? We weren't in the rural areas,
okay.
but that was also even still a problem with kids with multiple Chromebooks logging on. Although Cox did provide Wi-Fi, it was the lowest bandwidth you could get. So you cannot live stream 5 Chromebooks in a house and not have kids getting kicked off with free internet.
Yeah.
And so it was just they just lost out.
And you mentioned
there was
about
nothing else, no other way to make it up.
it was horrible. You mentioned about attendance being online. In theory, if the kids didn't show their faces, they could log in, but if they didn't turn their camera on,
They weren't attending.
they were not given credit for attendance. You
Yeah,
give them some
okay.
ample time.
Yeah.
You know, when you see their name pop up, hey, George, how you doing? Make sure you turn your camera on. You get
Right.
started with, George, I need you to turn your camera on. Otherwise, I can't give you credit.
Right.
And then I would just eventually, when I was tutoring, because I was tutoring online, I would exit them off, and then they would not get credit for being on. They
So
had
how
to
is-
have their camera on.
So
But
how
the
did that
flip
make?
side is true. I'm so
No,
sorry.
no,
I
you
just
guys
want to
just-
say, like, you know, they turn it on for a second.
Mhm.
Now they're in attendance. What
Right.
good is that? I don't understand the purpose of that.
Or they
Like,
turn
why-
it on and leave the room.
That's true too.
Then you get to see all the background stuff
That's
going on.
true too, right? So
There's
it's
a
like
lot of
if they,
stuff.
Yeah,
you
I
could
admit.
see them, if you knew somehow that they were there. And I think what I like that they were trying to give people grace, right? We're trying to show that this is a difficult process. We know that you're trying. We want you to put in some effort, right? And try. But that's not learning.
I remember seeing some of the videos of kids in attendance, and then in the background, mom's getting ready for work, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, this is not good. You know,
All I know
funny in
is my
some
dining room
cases.
Yes.
became like a rocket control center because I had the school I was working at the time, they gave me all the equipment, two Chromebooks and a projector and the whole thing. My wife wanted to know where her dining room went. So over Thanksgiving break or winter break for the 2 weeks, I had to break everything down out of my dining room for the break, put it up in my office in the house. And then the night before school came back, she said, okay, you can put it back now.
Oh,
Gee,
man.
thanks.
And you know, for me, I often wonder. I say to myself, you know, being a teacher would be a great thing, right? Teaching kids, getting them ready,
Long time ago.
preparing them, you know, to be
Mhm.
productive people in society and that
Yeah.
ordeal.
Mhm.
But then you as teachers, all day you're dealing with someone else's children, right? I wonder what
Yes.
it's like for you to go home and deal with your own family. You know, they have their issues. Your children
Yes.
have their issues.
Yeah.
You have your husband. How does all of that work being a teacher?
That's tough. Go ahead.
It is tough. I mean, in all honesty, you cannot, there's only one place you can give 100%, right? You can't give it here. You can't spread that out, right? 100% is 100%, and it has to be broken down. And, you know, teachers have all kinds of, my daughter's teacher always says this, and I think it's such a nice way to put it, you know, that there's all kinds of personalities in her classroom, right? So many different personalities. And that's very true. But, you know, when you are taxed mentally and it's 9 o'clock in the morning and you've only had them for 50 minutes, you know, you're wondering what you're going to do for the rest of the day.
Right,
but you're
right.
absolutely right. You know, it is
What
an
about
exhausting
cooking
job.
and
I don't
cleaning
do-
and
that does not happen
that
either.
doesn't
no,
even happen.
I want to know how many
Microwave, is that what you
teachers
do?
out there have finally gone to the grocery store and are cleaning out, you know, cleaning their house now, like for fun, because
Right.
they finally have the time and like
Right.
the wherewithal to feel like they can
Don't
do
you know
it.
the number one phone number dialed during school year is Uber Eats, Grab DoorDash? All that.
Really?
All right, with that, we're going to
Absolutely.
step aside for our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to get down into nitty gritty, like classroom behavior, how important the environment is within a
boy.
school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Give us a call. We'd love to have your input. 702-992-3207. You're watching the Roundtable. If they allow us, we'll be right back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here, this one.
Are you looking for someone to provide training to your staff? Do you need a motivational speaker about how to handle change? Do you have an upcoming event that needs an MC to handle those responsibilities? Well, look no further than longtime Las Vegas radio personality Aaron Phillips. I am local to Las Vegas and I can blend my talents with any audience. For more information, please visit www.aaronzauer.vegas and book me for your next event or training needs.
I'm leaving.
All right, recess is over. Class is back in session. That's right.
That's me. He looked at me wrong.
How could somebody pull your hair? That didn't make sense. Of all the people to say that,
When I had an afro.
Oh, that's different. That's right. Different. All right. Welcome back to the Roundtable. We have special guests Emily and Stephanie, our current teachers at CCSD. We're talking about the state of education here and all sorts of other good stuff. I've invited some of our friends. I've tagged them in the feed. Hopefully they'll join us. Anyway, let's get down to it. I think one of the things that we've, at least here on our show, George and Rick and I, we always talk about education and the things that go on in the classroom within districts and, behavior and what behavior leads to with some of the violent things we've really seen. But let's talk about behavior. What would be right now? I think we're all agreeing behavior affects everything for a student as well as a classroom and the teacher. Mm-hmm. Give us some recommendations on what you think could be done to help curb, maybe not, get rid of bad behavior, which will never happen. Give us some ideas of how maybe things you did in your classroom to help control behavior, or maybe suggestions you made to admin perhaps that, were never implemented. So whoever would like to go first. All right, there we go. 1, 2, 3, shoot!
I know. I feel like we're the same in that we both have really high expectations, and I know that comes off as strict, right, to kids. But it takes time. It takes so much time, and you have to get it right.
And consistency with those policies in your classroom, at least. Right?
Yes. So you have to think about it beforehand, right? Because you cannot promise. I've done this before. I'm like, sure, I'll do that, right? And then I forget, or I decide that doesn't work for me, right? It has to be realistic. But again, with all the different situations, it's a tricky situation for sure.
I will do. Before we went on there, we were discussing. I went to a military school, small school. Some of the classrooms, 5, 6, 7, 8 students, and the teachers. They were our disciplinarians. They were allowed. If we got unruly in classroom, we had a paddle. Mm-hmm. Or I went to a Catholic school with nuns. They were allowed to slap your hand or slap you on the back of the head. I had a coach who had a big championship ring on, and if you fell asleep in class and he was walking by talking about history, all of a sudden, whack! Yeah. Oh, you woke up out of that, and everybody's laughing in the classroom. But
right,
society's different now. You can't. You should be able to do that. I'm angry about it because they should still be able to do that. You're not abusing the child. You're disciplining them. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I think it's too late now, but 30, 40 years ago, you were able to do that.
You were.
And society was much better off in the long run because of that. Now, the kids don't have to listen to you guys, the teachers, and then they go on in life and they don't have to listen. They don't respect cops. They don't respect doctors. They don't respect teachers.
Right.
Emily, what's your thought on the discipline? I know a little something that you guys, their classrooms were next to each other, and they were right across from my room in the school building that we were in. So talk about behavior, though, from your perspective.
I mean, it's a tough subject, right? Because if you set rules and procedures in your classroom, you can kind of control certain situations, right, that pop up, right? Kids aren't always going to be like unruly,
right?
Especially the younger ones, right? More so in high school, you get a lot of the, kids cursing or yelling at you. In second grade, that's not going to happen as often. But I do have had kids who have plans that have been written, basically, I feel like, for managing unruliness, I guess, in the classroom. It's not really an IEP, but they write them that way. And
what's an IEP for those who don't know?
Individual education.
I know what it is. Tell them. Tell them.
Plans.
Tell the millions.
So it is the law for that kid.
It is the law for that kid, and you have to implement it. But I have had kids in my classroom in prior years that have thrown chairs, and we've had to evacuate the classroom in second grade, and that's scary for those kids.
And what kind of
not anything was done.
What would set him off to do something like that? Tell him to
I mean, it could be anything. He didn't want to do something, and he got mad and just started throwing stuff, and we just all had to leave. But the district and the school decided that he just needed an assistant. So they hired someone that walked with him all day long and was with him
and took care of him and
gave him until he left in middle school, because they don't let you do that in middle school.
Hired
all
assistant.
kinds of things.
Right.
The restorative justice practice has been
As you,
damaging.
as you can see, I'm
Yeah, I understand. We don't disagree that kids need patience and understanding and tolerance, and we do need to understand what's going on with them so that we can help them appropriately, right? But I think the memes out there where it's like, you don't send a kid to the office because they're going to come back, with a bigger attitude and a sucker, right? Or a candy bar. And I mean, that is no joke. That's funny because it's so sad because it happens, right? I mean, I had a kid punch me the first year I was in second grade, he punched me in the back because he didn't want to get in line.
That's a 7 or 8 year old kid.
And he remained at our school and continued to do the exact same things, belligerent, kind of scary kid. And I mean, he was basically tossed from his class in 5th grade because his teacher, thank goodness, made him earn his way back. And he didn't know how to do that, but I think it's also because there's just,
you have a rough childhood at home or that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I mean, and parents can be great and a kid can still have a rough, you know what I mean? And it's so complicated. Nothing is as it seems.
Rick?
The one thing I never really understood was this, girls. I would get happy. All of a sudden I get in trouble at school, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden they expel me and say, you got to go home and spend 5 days
I
at
know
home.
that's true.
And I remember I was like at home eating popcorn, watching shows, watching TV. I was having fun. It wasn't punishment.
Right.
That old deal. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about especially? I mean, I think that's just a vacation for the kids. This is what I would do. This is just what I would do. I would have them going out and doing community service, whether it's cleaning up a street, whether it's taking leaves, if it's doing something in the community for those days for punishment.
Well, I'm sure there's age parameters where kids might or may not be allowed to do that.
If someone to go out and pick up paper,
but they'd have to do it. They would
appropriate. Yes,
appropriate
it needs to fit the crime.
Punishment has to fit the crime. But someone like dad could say, "All right, Johnny, come out with me. We're going to go pick up the scraps in the front yard."
Right.
That's one thing. I get that. The bigger punishment would be go around and do it in the community.
Sure.
People may not like seeing the kid go around picking up, I'm just saying, I'm just guessing.
Well, the reason I say that is because once again, you can't punish them by paddling them. That's what the
in my own house I would paddle their
but I'm talking about at school,
right,
where you do the crime, you do the time. And you get your butt swatted in that whole deal, and the rest of the kids understand this is the consequence, and you have to be accountable for what you do.
Well, George, we've said this in past episodes. The kids used to be, I would say intimidated, but it's like, oh my God, the teacher's coming in the room, everybody sit up. We used to be that way with guidance counselors, right? Mm-hmm. Principals, administration. You're going to go, no, don't send me to the office. Well, now it's like, okay, send me to the office.
Right.
And, like at our school, they sit in that back alley by the bathrooms, and they're either sitting there doing nothing or they're doing work. But even being threatened to go to the principal's office doesn't do. More kids were threatened coming into where I was to sit with me than they were to go to the administrative office.
Mm-hmm. Well, my teacher,
am I right? Mm-hmm. Right, ladies, they can vouch.
I won't send a kid to the principal's office.
I mean, why?
It's not worth my time to fill out a report, and it's obviously a break. Mm-hmm. They get out of whatever it is they want to get out of. I'm going to make you sit here and suffer through it.
Yeah,
which is terrible. But they need to learn that they don't get their choice, right? Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. That's not. It's like punishment, right? It has to be a consequence because then they're going to learn from it, right? And if that's not happening, then it's the wrong thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, for me, the bad thing was that I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather never, ever, ever went to PTA meetings, ever. He was too tired. He got home from work and that whole deal. And just this one time, he says this, I'm coming to a PTA meeting. And you know what had happened to me that week? Because I put a girl's hair in the inkwell, and when she stood up, the ink went all down her dress. She separated me from the family and put me behind the piano. My grandfather comes up and says, "Where's your desk?" You talking about somebody that got beat up real good.
Oh, yeah.
I sat behind the piano. He grabbed me by the neck, and he's like, "Man, what are you doing?"
Mhm.
Now, I want to clarify for those
You were on
watching.
an island.
Yeah, he was. He didn't survive. He was not the lone survivor. He wasn't voted off. I just want to let our viewers know one thing. We're talking about these topics here from the perspective of the educator, not to complain and not to put the spotlight necessarily on the educators, but the things that take away from the educating in the classroom. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. This isn't, it's sounding like a what session, a B session. We have younger kids here in the studio. So it's not really that. What we're trying to educate everybody on is the perspective of those in the classroom about dealing with these things, how they negatively impact the environment in the classroom for the other kids in that class, learning, educating, and really taking time away from doing what should be happening. It's more instruction. So I want to just clarify
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And they
Thank
should
you.
know. You
Absolutely.
guys should know this.
By the way, do we have anything over there from America Speaks possibly yet?
You know, for education wise, can't find any comments from America concerning any particular
Okay.
subject. So I just figured we'll just get it all from.
Oh,
from
absolutely.
Emily.
It works perfectly.
Now, again, I mentioned earlier, I never went to my first public school was my freshman year in college. By then, I was okay.
You're still a virgin then too.
Yeah, that too. But in military,
That is
They were not
okay.
listening.
yeah, but it is okay. But when we had teachers come in, we had a lot of instructors, military instructors that were former Vietnam vets at the time.
Nice.
When they walked in the classroom, we all popped to attention.
Yes.
They would walk up and down the rows at ease, and then we were allowed to sit down. Today's lesson, and we stood even in parochial school, Catholic school, when female teacher, just a teacher, we were up, standing by our desks when they walked in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sit down, children. And there was no, you had BS going on, like Rick said, putting the girls' hair in the ink. Well, we did stupid little things like that, but not violent like today. And I'm sure it's not every student in your classroom like that, but all it takes is one.
Yeah.
So
That is so true. It only takes one. It's remarkable how a new person can disrupt everything. Everybody, the kids, the teacher, right, have worked so hard to form a community, and one person coming in can make or break that.
It changes the
Temporarily.
chemistry within the
I'm
classroom.
sure most of your
Sure
kids
does.
want to learn, and there's
Oh.
always one or two that take that away because now you have to stop the class to deal with the disruption.
That is a big problem.
I just want to do a quick reset and remind everybody you're watching the Roundtable show with the Mouth, with Rick and myself. Aaron, today's special guests are two educators here in the Clark County School District. Emily to my right, Stephanie on the far right. For me, your left. Yeah, you're left on screen. We're talking about education. Yes, sir. Oh, wait, just hold your. Oh, my God. Here comes trouble. So we're talking about education in general, their experiences, as well as in the Clark. Oh, we're Saved by the Bell. CCSD. The hand behind the podium back there, Mr. John. Why did I give him a microphone? John, take it away. Here we go. Get ready.
Oh,
He's
geez.
rubbing his hands. It's
Oh, my
You
God.
created a monster.
Oh,
Okay.
We love it.
Well, it's been quite a while since I was in school, but
you used to use chisels and hammer to write?
some of the things that I think about, and I know that our education system is in bad shape, and I don't mean that it's the kids today. When I went to school, I felt relatively safe.
Yeah.
I do not think that the kids going to school now do. I don't think that they think it's a safe environment. You have active shooter drills. Are you guys doing that at your school?
That's crazy. In
Yep.
elementary
It's
school.
like,
Hard
okay,
lockdowns.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
It's, hey guys, let's get ready in case somebody comes in here and shoots you guys up.
Yep.
Now,
Hard
how the
lockdown.
hell do you deal with that as a teacher?
Ugh.
What do you do?
Well, the kids
to-
actually like it as a drill because
Well,
it's
of course.
Yeah, it gets them out of
Takes
the room.
away-
But,
yeah.
but John,
Right.
you are right.
They
No,
go
no.
home thinking about that and they watch all this stuff on the news, and we've had a couple of hundred shootings,
Right.
and this is only May.
Well, the school district is required to do a certain number of drills each month: fire drill, hard lockdown, soft lockdown. If there's a situation in the area, you have to
Right.
lock down. That's a soft lockdown. Did we even do earthquake drills this year? I think
We
one
did.
time we
We
did, right?
did.
One
I
time.
think it's
So we're still doing
ratio.
earthquake drills here, but
Sure.
you're right. You're sort of planting that seed that danger could strike, and it's he's 100% correct. Well, but is that
Yeah.
really a different feeling than a fire breaking out?
Yeah, but do
But
the,
you're right.
For
though. I know
kids,
what you're
it
saying.
is.
I think
Yeah,
it
for
is.
kids,
Absolutely.
it's definitely
Yeah.
different, right? And then fielding their questions, and then
Yes.
also their comments.
yes.
My mom told me, or my dad, or I
Yes.
saw, right? And it's like,
Yes.
what? Wait, you're 7. What? And
Yes.
then, and I think one thing that's good about, how we've sort of relaxed some things is that we do need to consider, before we talk to kids, what their families might want, right? Maybe they want to handle this, right? And so I think more now than ever, for multiple reasons, I'm saying things like, that is a great question. I hope you go home and ask your parents that,
So
right? Because I'm not maybe willing
sorry.
to answer it.
So we talked about drill preparation. A couple of weeks ago, another school that I know, they had a situation that rumor was a student in an elementary school had a gun in his backpack. Rumor started going. The administration went to the classroom where the student was. They quietly brought the student out. They checked his bag. They found a magazine and a knife. They've never found the gun itself. But here's the thing. They did the lockdown. They did all of that as much as they could. They kept most of the building normal because it hadn't festered beyond the classroom where the student was coming out of. But what adds fuel to the fire of the concern, and I mean this with no disrespect to any parent, we're all parents up here, the parents got the information about the student. And so, of course, you know what happened. They went out onto Facebook. They went into the school chats.
Right.
They started calling the school. They used the communication system from the school to let the parents know. And then the parents, it's like, with all due respect, it's like adding gasoline to a bonfire in a situation that they don't have all the details about.
Right.
I get the immediate concern when you hear a weapon on campus. I'm not taking that away from anybody. But wait for the instructions or definitive information to know, because bombarding with the school when they're trying to handle said situations takes away from their ability to continue protecting the students. And that was what the administration position was on that. Have you experienced that on a campus with weapons or things like that? Where you've had to deal with backlash?
No.
Okay. Hope you never do.
I mean, the only backlash that I feel like has happened this year was when CCSD put out a policy that to secure all classrooms by keeping them locked, mandating that they're locked. So now every time a kid leaves a classroom and wants to come back in, they have to knock on the door. So you have to stop instruction every time to get up and answer the door. I had IEP class, or the inclusion class, which included the students who needed extra help that went to resource, and so I had to push in. They came in 5 different times in the classroom. And so those are 5 scheduled interruptions, right? Plus I have kids coming in from another classroom to join us. So there's another 2 or 3 times during the
Then
day.
you have those horrible tutors knocking on your door. Can I have so-and-so?
I mean, we're
Can I have an eraser?
That's right. Yeah.
right? Yeah, I mean, the amount of time that you have to continue to open up a door to get kids to come in, to sit down. I mean, and kids don't feel any safer that the door's locked. It doesn't feel safe.
Right.
Why is this door locked? It's not
It's an
open.
annoyance.
It's not
Right.
okay for me to walk around
The
here.
first grade teacher that was in our area, right? My afternoon was filled with 7 of her students over 2 groups. How unlucky, or I'm sorry, 3 times I had to go, sorry. By the way, there's a Donna Upchurch again. How do you feel about teachers having guns?
Thank you, Donna. I was going in that direction. Thank you for asking that.
Go ahead, ladies.
No way.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean,
We debated that amongst the 3 of us a few weeks ago.
yeah.
So you're not
absolutely.
in favor of teachers being armed. What about
More guns isn't going to make it
like
safer.
how about hired security? I'm in the security business. So we were talking about how these unemployed veterans across the country or retired police officers, maybe a school could hire 1 or 2 guards outside. Again, we don't want to make it look like it's that overblown, but in today's world, maybe it would deter some future violence if kids knew that there was an armed police officer, off-duty cop, or a vet that was walking around.
Who's going to pay for that?
Again, that's going to come up. Why wouldn't the schools want to put something aside, for children's future and their protection? There's no amount of money to put on that, in my opinion, especially in a town like this that makes billions of dollars, but they don't. Clark County School District is just, and I'm saying it, that it's awful.
Well, they just approved a $2 billion budget yesterday. Just, you know.
And why? They can they not afford it, or are people not? Don't they have the money for that?
I would assume they don't have the money for that. I mean, what are you think the kids coming in and seeing somebody standing in the front with a gun is going to make them feel safe?
No, because there are high schools in
And
this
walking
town that
through metal detectors
Yep.
is going to feel safe. I don't know how you do it, right? But we have a culture that needs to be addressed.
And then you said the keep culture over time, over a long decades and decades and decades, it just seems to get a little worse.
Yeah.
As time goes along. And
What-
where does that come from? The parents? From home?
Well, it's like we've all discussed, the three of us, when we've discussed it, I think we were all in agreement. It's accountability of the student.
Yes.
And then it's certainly the accountability at home. They
It
have,
has to.
like Emily
Right.
said at the top of the show, too many families move that accountability off their back to the babysitters in school. That's really what
Right.
they expect. And parenting, they expect the teachers to be parents to them, because in a lot of cases with these single family home, and I can speak from my experience, many of the kids in our school do not have a male presence in their house, especially for this boy students. And so for me, one of the things I loved about working with the kids one-on-one was with those male students that needed that male relationship.
Intervention.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
took that very personally to make sure that I was the kind of person that was going to hold them accountable for their actions
Yeah.
while they're at least in my room, or at least while they're in the teacher's room. Okay.
Mhm.
There was a student when that teacher in your wing there was out for a couple of days. One of my students was in there with the SOSA.
Mhm.
And they were doing a math lesson. We were in there taking stuff down off the wall for that teacher. And that student, my student, was not paying attention, was giving a little gruff. And I walked right up to him. I stood right behind him. And I looked at him and I said, so-and-so, you know better. We don't do this together, do we? And he just looked at me. I said, am I right? And he just looked at me. Am I right? I said, I want you to, and he said, okay, Aaron.
Yeah.
And so I made him pinky swear that he will hold his promise.
Yeah.
And he was not a problem. The rest
Yeah.
of the time that I was in that room helping to clean, he did his work.
Mhm.
So I enjoy that part of it, being that role model. And for those single family homes where the accountability can go out the window easier, perhaps in some cases with a single parent home, when the parent who is at home is working 24 hours
So
a day.
busy
And we
so
get that.
tired. Yeah.
And so in a way, school for them is almost respite for them when they do have the kid in school, so they can rest. So there is that reality of what it is, but it takes away from the accountability of the parent or grandparent or whatever support mechanism the child has to hold them accountable for grades, work, and behavior.
Now,
Yes.
do most kids
Sorry, I
treat
get off
you
my
with
soapbox
respect?
now.
Do they, Mr. and Mrs. Teacher? Thank you, Mrs. Teacher. I
Yes.
appreciate your.
I think absolutely they do. And I think kids want to do well, right? They want you to be proud of
I would
them.
think
They
most
want
of
you
them would
to
want that.
recognize, right? But they also know how to play the system, right?
Sure.
They know who a softie is.
Absolutely.
They know who's going to
Playing
hold
mom
their
and
feet
dad
to the
against each other,
fire.
right?
Absolutely.
And they
Yeah.
will do that too,
Good cop,
which
bad
is
cop.
fine, right? But we need a better system where everybody supports
There was
everybody.
no
Let me-
playing the system.
Let me turn it,
And-
John.
Yeah.
John has a comment. John?
I had
Now
heard
we're
a
change
statistic
topics.
last year that there are approximately 1,500 homeless students in our system.
Really? What, Clark County you're talking?
Yes.
That these
Yep.
kids probably are not getting a decent meal.
That's correct.
Yep.
Or sleep.
And how
I've
are
worked
you
with
guys?
Let's
handle
clarify.
that?
Let's clarify that these homeless students are within the valley.
Yeah.
And I'm
Right.
clarifying that because some people think because you live in Summerlin or certain areas of the town, oh, you
yeah.
can't have that up there.
Yeah.
Sorry, they're all over the valley. So
You know, we were talking about guns in that hotel, right? And so my thing is this. We're talking about mental health, right? It's a big thing. We had a therapist on our first show
that's right.
talking about mental health
Right.
with kids because he said, man, I'm bombarded, man, with mental health with these kids in that hotel, especially after COVID. I don't know about before COVID, but after COVID, mental health went off the chain.
Mhm.
Are you all as teachers, are you taught to understand and recognize if a child is having issues on the mental health aspect and then call the parents in and say, you know what, I think we have some issues here with your child, and I just want to talk to you about it? I mean,
We are not trained, but I would say that there's plenty of people who expect that and want us to do that, right? And I think that's a slippery slope. I mean,
Yeah.
to have someone who's there to educate your child now move into a completely different role that you are not knowledgeable on, right?
Right.
But then also to maybe parents don't necessarily want recommendations, I think sometimes. And I think that's fair because we don't understand everything that's going on. And there does need to be a better way to help students. And I get that they're in the school building, right? But the school it cannot be a community hub for everything.
I get you.
It can't provide the clothing and all the meals and all the everything.
Right.
It's a place of education. And I think that makes it really hard.
Like
What about the
Yeah.
counselor? What about a counselor?
Mhm.
Is the counselor?
She is overrun. We
She's
have the most
imagine.
amazing counselor. We even have a social worker on
I was
staff
just
now.
going to say that.
They're both
Yeah.
incredible. And I mean, there are not
They have
enough
that.
adults in that building,
Mhm.
right,
And
to
I'm not
service
upset
the
anymore.
mental health care needs of the population that we have. And I know that we're not the only
But we
ones.
do get trained. We
right?
have those required modules that we have to take every year from CCSD through the web system, HCM. And there is training in there to help us identify and recognize bullying, if there are changes at home, things
Right.
like that. Not to counsel the kids on it, but really just to raise our awareness to see the signs
Yep.
so that we can refer them
Right.
to the proper people who can.
Now, I'm going to go
Yeah.
a little overboard here, but
Well, there's a
time-
shocker.
That's why we call him the what?
Make it. Do you want me to go to break first?
You call him the what? The mouth.
Would you like me to go to break first?
No, I want America to see it.
All right, go for it. So let him say his piece. Don't answer it. I'll go to
Yes.
break and then you can answer afterwards. This
Growing
could
up,
be a 10-minute thing.
right? It could be. In today's world, I don't know. Every kid that gets in trouble, the parent, you misdiagnosed with the ADHD. Every kid's got ADHD when they get in trouble. And I don't know much about mental health too much, but you're blaming everything on mental health when a kid gets in trouble. Oh, they all have ADHD, every letter in the alphabet. I didn't ever hear of that when I was a kid. You sucked it up. You did your homework. Bullying, we were, you were allowed to punch a kid back if they were bullying you. Today, you can't do any of that.
My dad told me to do that.
Yeah.
Punch him back.
Yeah, but
It did not work, by the way. It made it worse.
really, well, in some cases, maybe it does, but I just don't understand that every time a kid gets in trouble, they were diagnosed with this, diagnosed with that, now they're on Ritalin, they're doing this. Stop, man. They got to find some kind of constructive activity to do.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Sports,
Yeah.
music.
Mhm.
An outlet.
Or
Yeah.
they're diagnosed
Right.
and you're having to deal with the
Drug 'em all
diagnoses
up
where
on
no
that.
one's actually actively trying to do anything
It's-
because
Honestly,
they
it is.
don't want them on medication.
Right.
Right. So now you have
Yeah.
this chaos,
And sometimes I think it's an excuse for lazy parenting or lazy teaching in some cases. I don't know.
Well, I'll give you one word that has changed all the outlets. Like we used to have football, intramurals, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Afterwards, one word. We're going to go to break on it. Fortnite. With that, you're watching the Roundtable. We got one more segment to go. We got a lot to fill in during that time. Don't go anywhere. We're right back.
This is the story of one man's incredible journey from 350 to 200-pound weight loss and his mission to help and inspire others. Aaron Phillips. People are praising Aaron's new book with 5-star reviews. Aaron's various humorous and wildly entertaining stories portray his rise as a sports announcer, his encounters with exotic and irregular entertainers on the Las Vegas Strip through his long-running Vegas Unwrapped radio show, and his contagious and positive style of pursuing success. Call now or visit our website or Amazon now to get your copy of Let My Voice Speak to You, stories from a Hall of Fame radio personality. Order now.
Hey, everybody. I am Aaron Phillips. You are.
I'm Governor Val Brown Klingelhofer.
And we host what kind of show?
We host the most fabulous show on this network you've ever seen. It's all about Kiwanis and what's going on in our different cities.
And Kiwanis Connects is the title, and you can watch us every Friday morning, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time, right on Facebook or WWDBTV. Say goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Aloha.
All right, line up, everybody. Recess is over. One head behind the other. Johnny walk, That's not what we usually hear.
Don't tell me what to do.
All right,
Yeah.
John. The floor recognizes the owner of the studio. He will have the final question on this topic. Then I want to segue into a couple other topics with the time we have left. All right, John, take it away.
So listening to you guys up there talking, and some of the things that we've talked about the last months or so on the show, aren't these cases, are they as prevalent as they sound? Or if you have a class of 30 kids, you got maybe 25 that are really good kids, and you got 3 or 4 or 5 that just need the crap knocked out of them.
Basically, yeah.
Subtlety is John's not best.
I'm just trying to say, we're focusing on
Right.
a lot of what's wrong, but isn't there a lot of what's right in the classroom too? I recently had an experience where I went out and filmed a school play at one of the local schools here. And I was really impressed by the staff, the teachers, the students, and kind of gave me a little faith.
That's a great point.
A little.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah,
Well, but for the one, I mean, did either of you have at least one student that disrupted everything in your class this year? No, I'm asking
Yes.
facetiously.
Yes,
How
I
many
did.
total did you have? 17 in your class?
I
Did
had
everybody-
16, yes.
16?
16
Okay.
as well.
So how many students out of the 16 were the ones that disrupted classes for you?
1 or 2.
1 or 2, probably 2.
2.
All right, so 4 out of 32,
For me.
right?
Yeah.
So that I think goes right in line with what John is suggesting. We're highlighting and putting the concerns that take away from our education, the remaining students in those classes, which is what we talked about as a little disclaimer. The 28 other kids, right? They're there. They're not the issues. They want to learn. But the time that we have to take away from the 4 takes away and reduces the amount of instruction time to all the kids that are behaving and doing what you're asking them to do. And I think that's sort of what John is talking about.
Right, and not to make light or not
No,
to say
no.
that it's not a problem.
Right.
But I'm saying it's.
But that's just in 2 classrooms. Now multiply that by the same numbers over an entire school,
Right.
depending upon the size of the school. All right, we have about 10 minutes left. I want to move on to a couple of things, 2 things in particular. Number one, the parents probably are tired of hearing this word testing. There are 2 major blocks of testing at the beginning of the year to get your numbers on students right near where they're at the beginning of a school year. Then we do one in the middle, don't we? Like around winter time.
Yep.
And then there's the same testing that you did at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year to test their progress throughout the year. There's a new bill that you were sharing with me in your bio, Stephanie, AB 296 by Assemblyman Ruben De Silva. Can you talk about what the bill is and kind
I
of
like Ruben.
with a little extra?
Ruben's amazing.
Ruben's good people.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were being
He-
facetious,
No,
John.
no.
Like, I was asking if you want the sauerkraut with that.
No, no.
I was thinking he was talking about a sandwich. I was like, well, where's
I'm
mine?
so used to John.
You know, John.
Being serious?
Share, big dog, share. We're talking about school.
School lunch is not
School
that
lunch
good.
is not very good.
Right,
The
free
school
lunch,
lunch-
everybody.
You never get
And
that.
that's the
Yeah.
other thing we
let's-
want to talk about.
Hey, get back on track up there.
Hey, we're trying.
And
So-
he's a young assemblyman, so I hope he gets to stick around for a long time. But he has teamed up with CCEA, Clark County Education Association, which
Who as
does
of yesterday
a
had no
lot
business license for
of
2 years.
good,
I digress.
supposedly.
No, it's on record.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it was an article that came out yesterday, but I digress.
I heard about this article. Yes. I support them. I think that they do amazing things and helping get they have 10 bills that have gone through and they're all very meaningful. And this one in particular, just is trying to limit the amount of testing that is taking place during an instructional day, right? More instruction, less testing. And instruction for testing, cannot count. And there's a lot of that. And I think people maybe wouldn't have an issue with it if they didn't feel like it tagged their kid in some way, right? Or pass judgment on what their kid can actually do. I mean, so much of what they're asked on a test is not relevant
Right.
to what they're learning, the age that they are.
Right.
And sometimes they know the answer, but there's a word there that they don't know,
Right.
right? And I mean, it's just the whole Emily is the perfect person to speak about this because the process in and of itself is extremely unfair. And that's a whole nother show.
So
But
take it away.
Take
What's
it
your
away.
comments on that?
I definitely don't agree with the amount of testing that happens, especially in elementary grades. I think the teacher should be doing the testing, not the state. It's 1 day, maybe 3 days if you're counting the amount of testing per season. And they put everything onto it, right? We're the ones closest to the kids. The testing that we do is relevant. The testing that they see and that they know helps their instruction, our instruction that we're giving to them and them grow. This MAPS testing that the state has for all these younger kids it's helpful for us, but we don't really know how to read it, and we don't oftentimes use it to our advantage, and it's just because we have other testing that we do that helps.
Hang on.
Go ahead.
I think sometimes everyone thinks that testing determines whether a kid is going to pass or fail, and you put too much credence on that and say, well, that he's going to be a failure because he didn't do very well in social studies, or he didn't do very well on the math test.
Right.
That whole deal. So overall, he's going to be a failure in that whole deal. How do you all feel about that as far as your testing is concerned, dealing with the child?
To me, when you test a student, it's not an indication of whether they're going to be successful. Right. Some students can, flourish really, really well, in another classroom under another teacher. Right. And then maybe the next year they may not do as well, but that's not an indicator of whether or not they're going to be a successful citizen in society.
Right.
It's not.
Well, I had
one
teachers
test out of 1 day.
Yeah. I had teachers when I was coming up told me because I didn't do well in a certain class, they said, you're not going to be anything. You're a dummy. You're a knucklehead.
You had teachers that said that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I had a coach tell me that in football, and I kept fumbling the ball.
There's a reason for that one, man.
Yeah, there's a difference between that and
of course I was.
You're not going to make it. What is the curriculum for a grade school kids?
Color within the lines is what it should be.
Math,
when I seriously, hang on a
spelling.
second. I want to just put this in reference. When I proctored these tests, and I was in kindergarten classrooms to proctor, I saw questions on there you maybe the five of us combined couldn't answer.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're asking these kids about perimeters and everything else in kindergarten.
Yeah. So what is the curriculum for 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid today?
In reading,
Math,
it's,
reading.
learning to read.
Yeah.
Right? So it's phonics and ABCs, and then math. It's, you're learning shapes and the addition and subtraction, single digit all the way up to 3 digit, and then multiplication in the intermediate grades and division. But like kids in second grade, they're 7, 8 years old. They're asking them these. The test that they take is from second grade to 5th grade. So if they do well, they keep giving them harder and harder and harder and harder questions. I've seen a kid who's dividing decimals on this test and has no reason to be asked this question.
And I guess if you didn't ask the question, you wouldn't know for sure if they knew. But if
you need to know that they know that,
right? But I guess sometimes does it test their ability to think,
but
even if they may not know
on
the
the
answer?
first and second grade level, who cares if they can divide decimals?
Right. Well, and I think what we have to be really careful of is that, there's a stigma that goes along with it, right? And when kids can't answer the questions that are on there, it makes them feel a certain way.
Yeah, you're stupid. Get out of here.
About themselves,
That's
about school in general, right? And nothing needs to make this any more difficult, right? The testing does. So
No, he's just letting me know he has another question back there.
So I appreciate that they're trying that they're aware. Right. And that these younger students, my understanding of the bill is that, that they're trying to limit the amount of testing. And, the younger kids, there's other ways to get the information that we want out of these tests. There's a better way to do it.
The important test should be what goes on in the classroom, the material that you guys are teaching. John, real quickly.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I have a statement. I was not a good student. And when I say that, I was, the class clown, always screwing around, cutting class, cutting school. I am amazed at this day how much I have retained from my school. So I want to tell you two up there that you may get discouraged sometime, but kids are going to look back and they're going to say, oh, wow, I remember this. So-and-so, this teacher or this teacher. I look
Right.
back now and think about some of the teachers that I had that
That's right.
never, ever, ever made enough money for what they were doing. And I feel the same way about you guys.
Right on. Well said,
No
Joe.
doubt.
All right, we have a
Thank
couple
you.
minutes left. I want to get your input on one last topic that I want to touch on, and that is how important chemistry in a school building is. And chemistry, from this standpoint, not necessarily with the students, because we're talking about all that here, that it's the importance of a teacher to have good chemistry within the classroom with their students, et cetera. But how important is it to have a positive environment within a building, within a classroom, from admin all the way down to your kitchen staff, to be on the same page, to talk amongst each other, to things like that, to better the kids in that building? I'll have you go first.
I think a positive culture and environment is extremely important, because if you don't have good leadership that people want to follow, the collapse is inevitable, I believe.
Okay.
And it's really bad for communities to have a mass exodus of teachers and
Out of one building.
out of one building,
Mhm.
right? And the community suffers, the kids suffer.
Yes.
It takes a long time to rebuild that.
Yes.
All of this expertise is out the door.
Mhm.
And it is very important to be positive and have a work environment that you want to go to and
'Cause-
you want to be there.
Right.
And it just raises everybody up
Because
levels.
the kids now, with that change in admin, are going to be looking for familiar faces the next year, and they won't be there. Stephanie?
Right. No, exactly. I mean, you want to have people that you can rely on, that you can learn from, right? Who can bring out your best self. I mean, you want that in the classroom for students, but you want that for yourself too, right? And, we're all, we've left our school, which is incredibly sad. And it's remarkable to me that one person can have such a ginormous impact on everything, right? But it impacts us as well, because now we're going someplace where we don't know anybody, and no, they don't know us, right? And you're starting over again. And I mean, and research shows that it's, like Emily said, you don't bounce back from that immediately, right? And it takes time to rebuild those relationships. And, kids deserve to have stability, and that when that is heavily disrupted, it damages.
Well, it's like we said before the show, we were discussing how a teacher I had 40, 50 years ago, and you remember, and maybe down the road, 10, 15 years from now, you'll have someone, oh yeah, you were so great to me. I remember our class and you were so good and blah, blah, blah. And then there's also kids that may not learn a lot, they respect their teachers, but sometimes when I was in school, students, we'd learn something from the lady in the cafeteria. Would give you life lessons or a couple things here and there.
Now you can't even
Or
talk to the ladies because they're handing out prepared food. It's not
Right,
like when we were
or
in
the
school.
janitor. Hey,
Yep.
Mr. Smith,
That's
he was the
right.
janitor,
Right.
and he used to teach
He knew
me
everybody.
this and that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
unfortunately, the quarter's running out in the meter. I just want to say,
Hold on a second. Let me get
I just want to coattail what you were just talking about. We know a lot of times students in the classroom just want to be heard.
Yes.
Well, there are times in the building where the teachers, the staff want to be heard, whether ideas or suggestions are taken advantage of or put into place, not even the issue.
That's right.
They just want to be heard because, like somebody said at the top, I think you said it, George, the teachers are the ones in the trenches. They know what's going on in their classroom for 6.5 hours.
That's right.
Specialists, everybody knows. So just like the students want to be heard at times,
That's right.
staff wants to be heard at times by the powers that be within the building so that they feel appreciated and part of what's going on. All right, with that, ladies, thank you for coming in.
Thank
Stephanie
you.
Smith,
Thank
man.
you.
Emily Boulder,
Give me
thank you so
some.
much.
Thank you.
As,
Give me
as
some.
we wrap up,
Bam, give me some.
George, final thoughts, Mr. George.
Normally, I tell everybody to keep their head above water. We're in troubled times these days. You just got to keep getting up in the morning and living your life and doing the best you can. And I appreciate you guys coming on. I learned a lot just in this hour.
Thank you for
Thank
having
It
you.
brought
us.
back some memories for me, too.
Mr. Upchurch.
Yeah, I'm thankful that Emily and Stephanie came on because it educated and gave us a lot of insight of what you guys are going through in the classroom. So thank you so very much for being on, gang.
Not they listen to me at all when I talk about it.
Well, we
That's all
don't.
right. All right, yeah, that's exactly. Anyway, ladies, we talked about this a few weeks ago. A lot of hemming and haunch. You guys did good. Very proud of you coming in and
Thank
I can
you.
tell just
Appreciate
by
it.
sitting here.
I trained them.
Oh, yeah.
You passed with flying colors.
That's it.
All right, you're watching the Roundtable. Before we say goodbye, just want to remind you tomorrow to tune into Kiwanis Connects at 9 a.m. tomorrow, where Governor Val and I will be talking with someone who is a past distinguished president in California. His name is Rex Mullen, and he is part of something regarding Edwards Air Force Base out in Cali. You're going to want to tune in to listen to that. As always, be kind to everybody. Why is that? Hey, we're all we have. We'll see you next time right here on the Roundtable. See ya.
I was a good boy. I respected my.